Hello guys, and welcome back to my YouTube vlogging channel, Miss Lauren Riley. As you might guess this time of week what the content's going to be, of course it's a quick review of The Apprentice. So we're up to episode 3. If you think you've blinked and missed one, I didn't do one on episode 2, they came too close together. I did a very quick vlog about it, but was a bit of a here or there episode for me. Okay, so this one was a little bit more entertaining, a little bit more interesting. So you could see the look of anticipation on the candidate's face when they were told to pack an overnight bag. Obviously, Series 10 last year, we got to go to New York. I bet they were only imagining in their excited little minds where the BBC budget might be taking them. And they really looked out this time, and they've got to go to France, which obviously France is quite beautiful, etc. But obviously not New York, and I'm sure they were thinking they'd probably try and top Series 10, but probably blew the budget on Series 10 being a big one. But anyway, that's an aside from the business content of it. As tasks go, this is one of the more exciting tasks, the Scavenger Hunt, I think it's technically termed. The principle being source all of the items on the list for the lowest possible price. If you miss any, you get fined. It came out later in the episode that the fine was actually £50 plus the retail price of the item. So the very first thing I would have done as project manager, and that those guys should have done, was figure out what was the most expensive item, i.e. what was going to get you the most, penalised the most if you didn't secure that, and source those first where logistically sensible. And obviously if you're ending up with a cheaper item, for example the cheese that was I think procured for about €15, well that plus a £50 fine is nowhere near going to be as expensive as the retail price of one of those antique mirrors, for example. I didn't see any of that sort of strategy at the start, a little bit of it towards the end, but you got, this episode was quite good because for me I felt like you got to see more people's characters a little bit more. Some people coming to the fore, some people not so much, which again is almost as interesting. So you had the project manager decision at the beginning, and obviously you had Varna stand up and she became the project manager, but you also had Elle, and interestingly nobody voted for Elle. And I felt sorry for her in that moment because she put herself forward. Business is obviously not about making friends, but you do have to be able to influence people, and clearly something else done in the run-up to that, a lot of which will probably be personal stuff that comes out through the sharing of a house and friendship groups, but she's obviously done something to not inspire the confidence of her teammates, so she wasn't chosen and Varna was. I had a strange amount of respect for Varna through this. You know, she clearly was trying to be a decisive, you know, businesswoman, make snap decisions, and for obviously ultimately they went on to lose, but she did show strength of character in standing by the decisions that she'd made, which actually a lot of people in this process don't. They're so quick to throw other people under the bus. I didn't like her style too much. I thought it was, you know, the way she spoke to people wasn't great, and I think that will probably cause her some issues down the line now she's you know, dealt with people in that manner. But you know, credit to her, she did take it on the chin when she went into the boardroom at the end, and you can see Lord Sugar's reaction to that. Actually, he almost said, don't it? It was almost the closest he could have said to, you know, you can't admit when you've done something wrong. You know, you should be throwing somebody else under the bus. And I don't like that sort of, that school of thought or idea in business, but you know, he gave her pretty sharp words as to what she needs to do to stay, and that's really, you know. Anyway, I jumped on about 50 million miles in the story of what happened on this, so I'm sure you've all seen it anyway, so this will be nothing new, it's just my little opinion. Joseph said something at the start of this one, and you can see, you know, he's got character, he's probably going to go a long way, he's going to provide entertainment throughout it, but when he said about the girls looking pretty and the guys in France maybe buying into that, you know, he's straying into very dodgy territory there, and had anybody I like to think some of these girls, if they'd have overheard him, would have set him right, but I certainly would have done if I was there. So the guys went on, and obviously they did pretty well. The best thing they were doing was celebrating whenever they got a good deal. They were, you know, there's a lot of banter going on. You can tell that the relationship among the males is strong, and that's, at this stage, it's about teamwork. When you get to the end, it's about individual performance, but teamwork will probably do them pretty well in the first place, so good for them. They would have looked really silly if they hadn't have won with all that celebrating, but they did. They went on to win, and quite convincingly. I think the girls got £728 and boys got everything for £409 in the end when you included the fines. It was quite a convincing win. What else stood out? Oh, so one of the things during the task was to purchase a dinghy, and the boys, quite cleverly I would say, went and purchased a inflatable dinghy from a toy shop, and the girls went with the specification of buying a very expensive but a real usable on the water dinghy, which obviously cost them a lot of money and was one of the reasons they probably, well, it was definitely a big contributory factor to them losing the task. And the reason I bring up that specific incident is I think that's really interesting, because it's pretty much Skeleton Gate circa 2014 all over again. Those people who didn't see it or need reminding, there was an incident where Felipe bought a skeleton, and the skeleton was not the physical one that Lord Sugar had wanted. It was a paper version or something along those lines, and he was very heavily penalised, criticised a lot from Lord Sugar, and the media and the fuss that surrounds The Apprentice really got behind Felipe, from what I saw anyway, and said actually he was probably right. He was being the typical lawyer and reading the actual rules, and the rules stated, or he said the rules stated, that there was nothing that it had to be that specific form. This seems to be the same thing all over again, only the decision is completely different, and this time Lord Sugar praised the boys for having that initiative, and last year obviously he didn't. So that's interesting and potentially a little bit controversial. I'm sure lots of people will pick up on that. Somebody already tweeted about what my opinion of that was, and I'd already had it down in my mental notes to tell you guys. I think that's quite interesting. Yeah, so some of the candidates, some of the strengths are coming out now, and some of them, the characters. I think Jenny really made a rod for her own back, bless her, when she said something along the lines as, you know, I don't need all these people here, I'd be better doing that on my own. Well, first of all, for teamwork, that's terrible. Second of all, she didn't say that to anybody's face. And third of all, you know, she's the one now that's been fired from the series, so that's really not going to stand her in good stead, I don't think, going forward. But she was the one that bit the dust this week. I think it was a bit of a fine decision. It wasn't a great task, but there wasn't, I think he seemed to struggle with who to send home, to be honest. We all know that when people go in the boardroom, they're going to claim one thing or another was or was not their fault or their achievement. And it's quite early. These ones that are fired in the early weeks, it seems to be much of a muchness, and that was my opinion. Although for the episode, one good point I would say is it's definitely getting a bit more interesting. One was bordering on dull for me. Two, I only caught half of because I was engaged elsewhere, and again wasn't particularly caught by it. Three was a lot more interesting. I don't know if it was the abroad element or just that we're starting to see a bit more of those character traits, a bit more of those things coming out. But I think, and I said this, I'm pretty sure I said it in my blog on laurenriley.co.uk, but if I didn't say it in my vlog, I meant to. From what I saw last year, some of the ones that did the best or went on to do the best actually were in the boardroom first. And what that gives them is a really valuable insight into how this game is played, into what Lord Sugar is really looking for. And for example, myself, I stayed out of the boardroom because I wasn't in the bottom three or didn't lose a task for a long time. And it was only right at the end that I kind of learnt things a bit too late. So the guys in the bottom now, I wouldn't write them off is all I'm saying. And yeah, a bit more of an enjoyable episode. I like it when they space them out a week because it gives me a bit more time to engage with you guys about it. But I hope my insight was interesting. Please give the video a like, subscribe to the channel, share it on social media, and I will see you soon.